Welcome back to the channel, Rare Coins History, another exciting adventure into the world of coins, where ordinary pocket change sometimes hides extraordinary treasures. Today's story takes us into the modern era of US coinage, but with a twist that makes this coin a true standout. We're talking about the United States of America 1-cent Lincoln penny from 2009 with the D mint mark. At first glance, it might seem like just another recent penny, but the reality is that it holds a fascinating backstory, stunning design elements, and, for a lucky few, a market value that could turn a single cent into a serious payday. The year 2009 was not just another year for the Lincoln penny, it was a celebration. It marked the 200th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth and the 100th anniversary of the Lincoln cent itself. To honor this momentous occasion, the U.S. Mint released a series of 4 special reverse designs, each representing a different chapter in Lincoln's life: his humble beginnings in Kentucky, his formative years in Indiana, his professional and political growth in Illinois, and his presidency in Washington, D.C. These designs were unlike anything seen before on a Lincoln penny, and they made 2009 a landmark year in American numismatics. The coin we're focusing on today bears the D mint mark, meaning it was struck at the Denver Mint. Denver is known for its high-quality coin production, but even here, rare varieties and minting anomalies can emerge, and that's where things get interesting for collectors. On the obverse, as always, we find Victor David Brenner's iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln, facing right with the inscriptions, "In God We Trust," above, "Liberty," to the left, and the date 2009 along with the D mint mark to the right. The reverse on your coin depends on which of the 4 2009 designs it belongs to, but all of them are rich in historical meaning. Whether it's the image of a young Lincoln reading while taking a break from rail splitting, the Indiana cabin of his youth, the Illinois State House steps, or the half-built U.S. Capitol dome representing his presidency, each one is a miniature work of art. They don't just tell the story of Lincoln's life, they also tell the story of America's journey through growth, struggle, and unity. Now, while millions of these pennies were produced for circulation, only a fraction remain in pristine, uncirculated condition. Many have been tossed into jars, handled countless times, or suffered scratches and discoloration. But the real treasures are those coins that somehow escaped circulation entirely, retaining their original mint luster and sharp details. And then there's the truly rare category, coins with unique minting errors. A double die reverse, an off-center strike, a die crack running through Lincoln's portrait, these are the kinds of quirks that make collectors' hearts race. Not only do they stand out visually, but they also represent an accidental uniqueness, making them one-of-a-kind finds. The 2009 D penny is particularly sought after because of the special year it represents and the variety of designs it carries. In gem mint state, especially when graded MS 67 or higher, it becomes a serious prize. Coins in this condition are like time capsules from the very moment they were struck, every detail crisp, every surface untouched. The beauty of a coin like this is that it bridges the gap between modern minting and deep historical significance. It's not just about the metal or the design, it's about the meaning behind it, the artistry involved, and the rarity of finding one in perfect condition. Holding such a coin is like holding a tiny piece of American history that has been perfectly preserved for future generations, and this is where the excitement really kicks in. Because while most people see a 2009 penny and think of 1 cent, collectors in the know see the potential for something far greater. They know that the combination of rarity, condition, and historical significance can transform a common coin into a sought-after treasure. So here's the part you've been waiting for. If you happen to own a flawless, uncirculated 2009 D Lincoln penny, especially one with a rare minting error, its value could reach an astonishing $30,000. Today, we're going to travel back in time to the early 1950s, a decade full of optimism, post-war growth, and a nation eager to move forward. Our spotlight is on the United States of America 1-cent Lincoln penny from 1951, a small copper coin with a big story to tell. And while most people would walk right past it without a second glance, serious collectors know that this little coin can sometimes be worth far more than its humble face value. To understand why the 1951 Lincoln penny is so fascinating, we have to step back to its origins. The Lincoln cent first appeared in 1909, replacing the Indian head cent, and it quickly became one of the most iconic coins in U.S. history. Designed by Victor David Brenner, it was the first regular-issue U.S. coin to feature a real person, and Abraham Lincoln's face has been there ever since. The wheat ears reverse design, which we often call the wheat penny, became a beloved part of American coinage and remained in production until 1958. In 1951, the nation was in the midst of the post-World War II boom. Families were moving to new homes, the interstate highway system was starting to take shape, and the Korean War was underway overseas. The coins in people's pockets, like the 1951 Lincoln penny, were silent witnesses to all these events. Depending on the mint mark, these pennies were struck in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco. Each mint mark carries its own level of scarcity, and certain combinations of date, mint mark, and condition are much more valuable than others. On the obverse, the coin features Lincoln's profile facing right, with the words, "In God We Trust," above, "Liberty," to the left, and the year 1951 along with the mint mark, whether it's D for Denver or S for San Francisco, to the right. On the reverse, the familiar two stalks of wheat curve inward from each side, framing the words, 1 cent, and United States of America, with E pluribus unum at the top. It's a simple yet timeless design, and for many Americans, this coin was part of daily life for decades. What makes some 1951 pennies special enough to command high prices in the collector's market comes down to two key factors: condition and rarity. Condition is graded on a scale, with circulated coins showing wear from everyday use and uncirculated coins retaining their original mint luster. The higher the grade, the more a coin is worth. A pristine example, untouched by time, can be incredibly valuable, especially if it comes from a mint with lower production numbers. Then there's the matter of mint errors. These are the accidental quirks that occur during the minting process: double dies, off-center strikes, die cracks, or even coins struck on the wrong metal planchet. A 1951 penny with a dramatic and visible minting error can skyrocket in value, as collectors see it as a unique piece of history that will never be replicated. It's also worth noting that many 1951 pennies were heavily used in circulation, meaning they picked up scratches, discoloration, and other signs of wear over the decades. Finding one in sharp, gem mint condition is a challenge, and that rarity drives up the value. Serious collectors are willing to pay top dollar for coins that look as fresh as the day they left the mint. The 1951 penny is more than just copper. It's a tiny, tangible connection to a time when gas was 27 cents a gallon, bread cost 16 cents a loaf, and a new car could be yours for around $1,500. It's a reminder of simpler times, but also of how much has changed. Holding a coin like this is like holding a piece of living history, a link between the America of the 1950s and the present day, and here's where the excitement builds. Because while most 1951 pennies might only fetch a small premium over face value, there are exceptional examples out there, flawless in condition, possibly with a rare minting error, that are worth a staggering amount of money. If you happen to have one of these rare treasures tucked away in a coin jar, a desk drawer, or an old family collection, it could be worth as much as $38,000. Today, we're going to explore a coin that most people would overlook without a second thought: the United States of America 1-cent Lincoln penny from 1979. At first glance, it's just another penny, small, copper-colored, and common. But dig a little deeper, and you'll discover that some examples of this coin could be worth far more than a single cent, and in some cases, enough to change your day, or even your life. Let's set the stage. The year was 1979, disco was still alive, the Walkman was about to change how people listened to music, and America was going through an era of big changes both politically and economically. Inflation was high, gas prices were a constant topic of conversation, and yet, in pockets and purses across the nation, the humble penny kept quietly doing its job. That year, the U.S. Mint produced Lincoln pennies at several locations, each marked with a tiny letter beneath the date: no mint mark for Philadelphia, D for Denver, and an S for San Francisco. The obverse side of the 1979 penny features the classic profile of President Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner, with "In God We Trust" proudly arched across the top, "Liberty" to the left, and the date to the right alongside the mint mark. On the reverse side, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, designed by Frank Gasparo. If you look closely at the memorial on some coins, you can actually see a tiny statue of Lincoln seated inside, an incredible detail for such a small piece of metal. The words, United States of America, stretch across the top, E pluribus unum, just below, and 1 cent sits boldly at the bottom. So what makes a coin from 1979 stand out to collectors? The answer is in its condition, rarity, and, in some cases, unique errors from the minting process. Most pennies from this year were struck in huge numbers and saw years of circulation. That means they've been dropped, scratched, dinged, and worn down by decades of use. But every now and then, a coin survives in pristine, uncirculated condition, bright, sharp, and as flawless as the day it was minted. Those are the coins that collectors prize most. Mint errors are another factor that can make a 1979 penny valuable. These can include doubled dies where the lettering or date appears doubled, off-center strikes where part of the design is missing, or coins struck on the wrong planchet entirely. Errors like these happen rarely, but when they do, they create one-of-a-kind coins that collectors go wild for. The more dramatic the error and the better the condition, the higher the value can climb. The Denver Mint, marked by a small d beneath the date, produced a massive number of pennies in 1979. While most are worth only their face value, certain high-grade examples from this mint, especially those with unique errors, are highly sought after. A coin that combines a rare mint mark, flawless condition, and a visible striking error becomes something incredibly special. Think about it. Millions of these coins passed through the hands of Americans in the late 70s and early 80s. They bought groceries, paid for bus fares, and rattled around in change drawers at diners and corner stores. And yet, among all those everyday pennies, there are a select few that have managed to remain nearly perfect over the years, untouched by circulation. Those are the ones collectors dream about finding. The value of coins like this is not just about their metal or face value. It's about history, craftsmanship, and scarcity. Each one is a time capsule from an era long gone, carrying with it the story of a country in transition. That's why collectors spend years hunting for these gems, attending coin shows, scouring estate sales, and going through thousands of pennies just for the chance to find that one special piece. And here's the part you've been waiting for. While most 1979 Lincoln pennies will never be worth more than a cent or two, there are rare examples, with exceptional condition and possibly a dramatic minting error, that can reach jaw-dropping prices. In fact, the most desirable specimens have been known to sell for as much as $42,000. Today, it carries a story from more than half a century ago. That's the magic of the United States 1-cent Lincoln penny from 1966. At first glance, it's just another copper coin, a simple piece of change we've all seen countless times. But in the world of coin collecting, appearances can be deceiving, and in rare cases, this humble penny can be worth far more than its face value. To understand the importance of the 1966 penny, we need to go back in time. The mid-1960s were a fascinating chapter in American history. The country was in the middle of the space race, popular music was being transformed by artists like the Beatles, and the cultural landscape was changing rapidly. Meanwhile, the U.S. Mint was facing its own challenges, including a nationwide coin shortage in the early part of the decade. This shortage led to some unique decisions about how coins were made, and that's part of what makes certain coins from this era special. One key fact about the 1966 penny is that you won't find a mint mark on it. That's not a mistake, it was intentional. Between 1965 and 1967, the U.S. Mint decided to remove mint marks from coins entirely as part of their effort to discourage coin hoarding during the shortage. This means that all 1966 Lincoln pennies look similar at first glance, whether they were struck in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco. For collectors, this was an unusual and short-lived chapter in U.S. coinage history, making these pennies instantly more interesting. The obverse, or front side, of the coin features the iconic portrait of President Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner back in 1909. The details are classic: "In God We Trust" arches above Lincoln's head, "Liberty" sits to his left, and the date, 1966, rests on the right. The reverse side shows the Lincoln Memorial, designed by Frank Gasparo, with incredible attention to detail. You can even spot a tiny statue of Lincoln seated inside the memorial if you look closely. The inscriptions, United States of America, E pluribus unum, and 1 cent, complete the design. Now, while millions of these coins were produced for everyday use, not all pennies are created equal. Most were handled, dropped, and worn down by decades of circulation. But in rare cases, some 1966 pennies survived in exceptional, uncirculated condition, sharp edges, clean fields, and a beautiful original luster. These are the coins collectors hunt for, and when you combine perfect condition with the historical oddity of the missing mint mark, the value begins to climb. And then there are mint errors, the fascinating accidents that happen during the coin-making process. A double die error, for example, can make the lettering or date appear doubled. Off-center strikes can leave part of the design missing entirely. Sometimes a coin is even struck on the wrong metal planchet. These errors are rare, unpredictable, and often turn an ordinary penny into a one-of-a-kind collectible. The 1966 penny has been known to appear with a few notable errors that drive collectors wild. Imagine finding one where the lettering seems to have a ghost-like shadow, or where Lincoln's portrait is shifted to the side. These aren't flaws in the sense of damage, they are minting quirks that happened at the moment the coin was created, making them incredibly desirable in the collecting world. For many people, pennies from the 60s might just be tossed into a change jar without a second thought. But a trained eye knows that each coin tells a story, and some stories are worth far more than 1 cent. In coin collecting, rarity, condition, and history all come together to determine value. When you have a coin from an unusual year like 1966, in flawless condition, possibly with a rare minting error, you're looking at something truly special. It's fascinating to think that a coin minted during a time when mint marks disappeared could survive more than 50 years in pristine shape. Each one is like a tiny time capsule, a link to a very specific moment in American history. That's why collectors don't just see a coin, they see the story it carries. And now, here's the moment you've been waiting for. While most 1966 Lincoln pennies will only ever be worth their face value, there are rare examples, flawless in condition and sometimes carrying unique minting errors, that have sold for as much as $46,000. Today, you come across an old, slightly darker penny. Most people wouldn't think twice. After all, it's just 1 cent, right? But what if I told you that a certain kind of 1 cent coin from 1980 could change your life forever? That little piece of copper in your hand could hold a story, a mystery, and possibly a fortune. Let's rewind back to 1980. The United States was experiencing a decade full of change, from shifting economies to cultural milestones. Music was booming with disco fading and new wave coming in, movies were creating timeless classics, and technology was taking its first leaps toward the modern world we know today. And in the background, the U.S. Mint was producing billions of coins, including the humble Lincoln cent, each one carrying the face of America's beloved 16th president, Abraham Lincoln. On the obverse, or front, the design remained faithful to Victor David Brenner's original portrait introduced back in 1909. Lincoln's profile stands tall, with the words, "In God We Trust," curved above, "Liberty," to the left, and the date, 1980, to the right, accompanied by the mint mark that tells you exactly where it was made. Depending on where the coin was struck, you might see a D for Denver or an S for San Francisco. And then there's the reverse, Frank Gasparo's Lincoln Memorial design, a familiar sight for decades, with the intricate columns and the tiny, almost hidden statue of Lincoln inside. Now, here's where things get interesting. While billions of pennies were struck in 1980, not every one of them is created equal. Most of them have been worn smooth by years of circulation, sitting in pockets, cash registers, and piggy banks. But some survived in pristine, uncirculated condition. Their copper surfaces shine with their original luster, the details on Lincoln's hair and the memorial's columns crisp and sharp. These coins, untouched by time and wear, are the treasures collectors are always chasing. And then, of course, there's the magic of mint errors. If you're new to coin collecting, you might not realize just how valuable a mistake can be. When a coin is struck off-center, when the die is doubled, or when the wrong type of planchet is used, you don't just get an odd-looking penny, you get a rarity that collectors can't resist. In 1980, a small number of Lincoln pennies were struck with errors that make them stand out from the billions of others. These aren't the kind of mistakes you can fake. They happened in the split second the coin was made, and each one is unique. Imagine finding a penny with the date doubled so clearly it looks like it's been printed twice. Or picture holding one where the strike is so far off-center that half of Lincoln's head is missing. These errors transform an everyday coin into something rare and highly desirable. And when you combine a flawless condition with an extraordinary error, the value can skyrocket. What makes the 1980 penny even more interesting is the timing. By this year, the mint was preparing for a major change in coin composition. Just 2 years later, in 1982, the penny's copper content would be drastically reduced, replaced mostly by zinc. This makes the 1980 copper penny part of the final chapter in an era of solid copper coins, a detail that matters to collectors who appreciate not only beauty but history. It's fascinating to think about how many of these coins passed unnoticed through people's hands over the last 4 decades. Every one of them has a story. Some bought candy at a corner store, some got lost in couch cushions, and a rare few have been carefully preserved in coin collections, hidden away from the wear and tear of daily life. These are the coins that, when the right buyer comes along, can command eye-popping prices. So, next time you come across a penny from 1980, don't just toss it into a jar. Check the details. Look for that mint mark. Examine the strike, the edges, and the surface. You never know what you might have, because while most 1980 pennies are worth just a cent, there are rare examples, in perfect condition and with remarkable minting quirks, that have sold for as much as $53,000. $53,000 for a single penny. Just think about that, a coin you might overlook could be worth more than a brand new car. In the world of coin collecting, history, rarity, and condition combine to turn the ordinary into something truly extraordinary.